So, welcome. Thanks for coming to my talk, It's a Disaster. It's really great to be here, and I hope everybody's having a fabulous time at the con so far. So this is a little talk about saving your bacon. A bit about me. I'm Cheryl Biswas. I go by Encrypted on the Twitters. I work in KPMG, Toronto, Canada, and I'm a cybersecurity consultant there. I also like to get involved with things, APTs, threat intel, helping secure specialized systems like ICS, SCADA, and mainframes. Those are just a few of my favorite things. I love to write about what I learn and share it online, as well as getting to give talks. And I'm also an organizer with an event known as TiaraCon. This will be our second year at Hacker Summer Camp in Vegas, just to encourage diversity and get women encouraged as well to be part of a really great community. Oh, and thanks to my employers for sponsoring this endeavor. And that's it. The views here are my own, not those of my employer. Okay. We're good with the preliminaries. Let's get on to the fun stuff. All right. So this is a talk about disaster recovery, and everybody knows what a DRP is, P standing for plan. I hope you've come prepared for a very bad day at the office. So, what if where you worked didn't work anymore? We're really great at assuming things, right? We assume that when we get up in the morning, we're going to go to work, right? It's Monday, we're going to show up, it's going to be there. However, you don't know what you don't know. We have no control over acts of God, acts of nature, acts of our kids, like spit up. And there really are only two things that are certain in life. Where you work isn't one of them. We do have the benefit, though, of history and experience. Problem is, as security keeps bearing out, we're selective learners, and we're selective about how we apply the lessons that we learn. And when it comes to disaster recovery, the responses tend to be a rolling of the eyes, a glazed look, and a, yeah, we got that. No, you don't got that. A lot of organizations say that they have a plan, and they probably do, but they haven't tested that plan. And that, my friends, is a very big risk, because disaster recovery is a cornerstone of a good security policy. For those who are just joining us, we have some lifesavers here, because this is about disaster recovery. Okay. So I come from Canada, and I have lived through 2 ice storms. One of them was so bad that I know people who had to burn their furniture to heat their homes. There were no more generators. There were no batteries in the stores. They were freezing, and help wasn't coming to them. Last year, we watched in horror as one of our northernmost communities, Fort McMurray, almost burned to the ground completely in a horrific forest fire. Now, these are events that happen globally. We know California and in Australia, wildfires, massive snowstorms. The fact is, when you're caught in the middle of it, the impact is staggering. You are overwhelmed. That is not the point where you want to be figuring out what you're going to do. You want to do that before the event happens. And that is why I was so motivated to give this talk. So let's talk about the dollars and cents of preparing and to be expecting the unexpected. And a little picture about downtime to illustrate it. So I got to listen to a fabulous talk by Jay Guerlich at on Friday afternoon about cloud and business continuity. And this really was one of those talks we have got to have. And he brought forth a couple of very salient points. They were hard-hitting, so I'm going to use them here as illustration. One of them was about a fairly recent outage regarding Delta Airlines. Some of you probably remember that. And can you guess what was the price tag attached when people did not get to fly the friendly skies? Was anybody at Wolf's Talk on Friday? All right, anybody want to throw out a random guess for me? You get a prize. 2 million, 40 million, 8 million? Higher. No, not $1 billion, but let's try $177 million for several hours. That's pretty steep. Who said the highest number? Gotcha. All right. Another outage that happened back in March. Everybody remembers when Amazon Web Services went down? Yeah. Can you guess how many Fortune 1000 companies actually are customers for Amazon Web Services? What percentage of that? Yeah. Oh, you definitely get one of these. That's a lot. Those are customers. That's not even Amazon. And would you like to know what the price tag attached to 4 hours of downtime was for them? $150 million. Yeah, it could have been worse, but yeah, that is a lot of money. And so that's why we can assume that it's going to happen to us. Just don't assume that you're going to be ready when it does. So recent events have hit home to us how dependent we are on availability. Case in point, WannaCry ransomware and hospitals. Why? Because we expect our essential services, our critical infrastructure, to be there all the time, especially when we need it. So it isn't about confidentiality or really even integrity. It's all about availability. And the fact is, there is no time for downtime. You don't want this to be you. So this is what we need to understand. It isn't enough just for us to have a plan. We have to test it. Why? Because we need to know not only how does it work for us, but how do we work with it. If we choose to pay lip service to disaster recovery, we're taking a far greater risk than we realize. Here's some examples, some ratings actually, of causes. And that orange bar along the bottom, well, UPS stands for uninterruptible power supply, right? Apparently, it gets interrupted a lot. And British Airlines, case in point. Apparently, a UPS and two data centers were involved in that massive outage. So whatever the cause, can you say that you really are prepared for the downtime? All right, so we've had a good preamble. Are you guys ready? Would you like to play a game? All right. I am going to ask for you to interact with me on this. I say, it's kind of like call and answer. I say disaster and you say California. Tell me. Okay. Julian. Okay. I was looking for some example. Tornado? Great. Give me another one. Power outage? Another one. Yep. Yep. And yes, absolutely squirrels. Ooh, I saw that Twitter. Yeah. Thank you. Excellent. Okay. You guys, please circulate the lifesavers. That was worth, everybody gets something. All right. So yeah, because human error really is a thing, as are pissed off sysadmins and natural disasters and cybercrime. So we're going to play another game called 10 Words or Less. Can you tell me what you think disaster recovery is? I have a nice chocolate for you. Disaster recovery, 10 words or less. Okay. Anybody else have something they want to add to that? Or is everybody good with that as far as a definition to stand with? Okay. So, our next game, there's a ton of acronyms when talking about business continuity and disaster recovery. We're going to have a little fun with this. Name that acronym. All right, who can tell me what BIA stands for? Good, and why do we do that? Good, excellent. This one's in reserve for you. Okay, next one, RPO. That is exactly right. Okay. He's not a ringer, I promise. Yeah. And while you're at it, do you know what it means or why? It's pretty close. Actually, it's like when you take a snapshot on your machine. So it's where you want to restore your system back to, that actual point in time. Yeah. How about SLA? Exactly. Can you tell me why or what it is? Right. Yeah. Because there's a lot of trust going on there, and you want to hold them accountable to it. How about HA? Any takers? Yeah. And what does that mean? That would be something you'd want to short up. Maybe a little bit more. What's the expectation around high availability? Yeah, highly available. It's got to be reliable and it's got to be up pretty much all of the time. This is an easy one. How about IR? And this is how we know this is a security conference, right? Yes. BC? Did I hear it? Who said it? Yeah. That's it. Exactly. So, can you explain the difference between business continuity and disaster recovery? Okay, I know there's a lot of different definitions. That's a good one. One that I liked was how business continuity is this overarching umbrella that's ongoing. Like you said, what needs to be in place. Disaster recovery is more of a point in time, a specific event recovery handled underneath that umbrella. How about, we can come to these. I'm actually going to move to the next slide because there are a lot. So RTO is your recovery time objective. That's how long you're willing to put up with an outage, how much you can sustain. DRP, we already knew that was a disaster recovery plan. DRS, so that is a disaster recovery site. Have you heard the terms hot, cold, and warm sites? Right. So that's good to know as well. Okay, I'm probably going to have to give all of you a chocolate for that because you all did so well. Thank you. So now that we have an idea of what we've got to do, let's talk about what we're going to need to put in place. Here's the basics. Your objective. Because you can't go anywhere if you do not know what's critical. What is the most important thing to you at that time to keep up and running? What does your world revolve around, really? And only you can answer that question. So you need to take it there and identify your critical applications. Incident response, you've got to have an incident response plan, and it will address these things, and you have to have the people identified. And for that, you really need to have a playbook. Does anybody here have a playbook? Do you get what I'm talking about with regard to that? Yeah. Now, I sat in on a really, really interesting talk recently by somebody who does this for a living, and he talked about playbooks with a passion that was fierce. And he put the fear of God into an entire audience about what they were going to do with their playbooks, because those playbooks were coming off the shelves and the dust was coming off of them. Those playbooks were revered members of the team. And it's true, because that playbook isn't doing anything for you if it's just sitting there and you pull it out maybe once or twice a year. What you want is something that is a living, breathing reflection of your organization. You're changing things, adding things, losing people, adding equipment, updating, patching. All the changes need to be reflected as you go through, because when the day all hell breaks loose, it would be good to know that you had or had not put on the latest patch, or that there is a server that's been added to replace this other server. And all of those things are up to date. Otherwise, something's not going to work. And you are going to have a really bad day at the office. And of course, you have to identify your sites. So these are the basic things to get in place. Now, we brought up the term SLA earlier because there's a whole lot of SLAs you are going to want to lay out. Why? Because you're going to actually need to bring other people in to help you do this. And that is a whole lot of trust. How do you make sure that trust is anchored? Show me the money. They are held accountable. They have to pay you if they do not deliver on the terms of that agreement. Life isn't perfect. Nobody's superhuman. But when you want to make sure that that data center or that cloud storage they are providing is going to be there when you need it most, then the onus is going to be on them to deliver it as you expect it to be. No surprises. And finally, your people. We know that people are your greatest asset, really. And in times of strife, you want everybody on board, on the same page, well aware of what they're supposed to do, and really, really aware of what they're not supposed to do. So, you may notice I've got designated spokespersons there. You're going to thank me for this later, because we'll talk about it more in depth. Regular run-throughs so that people know what they should do, where they should be, and how they should behave, right? Who they're going to interact with. Who gets to have the talking stick. Training and awareness. This is all good stuff. All right. With those in place, you are quite prepared. How prepared do you think most organizations are? Yeah. Yeah, this is the sad reality. I will let those numbers speak for themselves, but the fact of the matter is they're going to be trying to figure out what to do on the day of. That's not going to go very well. Because what could go wrong, right? Well, yeah. This. And this is why a very large number of companies do not recover from catastrophic or major events. So, let's move on to a little more what if. Because, as well prepared as you can be, you can't always expect what's going to happen, right? And we've watched the threat landscape change. We've seen stuff that we really didn't expect to see. Ransomware, malware, pivots, threat actors doing things from unexpected corners of the globe, stuff that disappears and then comes back, right? We know the threat landscape is changing and morphing. We know that natural disasters seem to be increasing, less predictable, more ferocious. I thought this was very telling, that attacks aren't against organizations, they're actual campaigns. So there's no more one of, it's much more prolonged. How do you address these changes? Because we work from models, and we have assumptions based on those models. How are we adapting them to reflect what's really going on around us? Because it's not enough to say, well, we based it on this model, and this is what we've been doing, and we'll change it when. Well, when are you going to change it? Because there's a lot of stuff going on right now, and maybe you want to tweak that. Break out that incident response playbook. Okay, so here are some tasty choices. We did a good run through earlier, but these are the kinds of things that we absolutely need to be addressing. Pandemics. We had SARS hit Canada about, it was a decade ago. Shut down. People walked around with masks, shut down everything. Like, you can't go to work because you might get sick. You might die if you get sick. People do not respond well to situations like that. So, there are a lot of ordinary factors, but there are some pretty extraordinary ones in there. Which brings me to the fun stuff. So, who knows what a cootie catcher is? Remember these? So this is how we're going to play it. I've got fire, water, cyber, and human as our choices. First one's going in. This is going to determine our industry that we are, as well as the disaster we will be facing today. Okay, so which one? Fire, water, cyber, or human? All right, we will spell out cyber. C-Y-B-E-R. Okay. I have a number 7, 8, 3, or 4 to pick our industry. 7? Okay. Ooh, our industry is government. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4. A number 1, 2, 5, or 6 to pick our calamity. 5? Tornado. All right, so welcome to our disaster. We are the government. We can be the federal government, and we are going to be hit by a massive tornado. If only disasters were this easy, right? So now, tornado sirens are going off, and this is your coworker. Just a little fact here that disasters do not bring out the best in people. Not only will you not recognize the people you work with, you will not recognize yourself. You will become a very different person. And everybody is going to have to relearn how to work together. So what's important now is the team that you have assembled. Who needs to go on a disaster recovery team and why? These are the questions that you want to take beforehand when you put your team together, because when you meet at your special place, you have to make sure you're addressing the issues of everybody concerned. Who has a stake, who has the most to lose, and why? I say everybody has a seat at this table. And this is the part I told you to wait for. Yes. How do you manage crisis communications? This is huge because I think we all know what happens when we have somebody who likes to run off at the mouth rather freely, to say whatever pops into their head at a chosen moment in front of the media a lot. You do not want this. You want to have one voice, one person or two at the most designated spokespeople who will convey, ideally, a pre-written script that addresses certain scenarios so that you have the time to tailor that, update it, and then make it presentable to your various audiences, like your stakeholders, your employees, and the media and public at large. When you have control over the message that you're giving out, you are going to avoid one horrific headache because you cannot do damage control at that level or at that time. You want to be able to have somebody who's monitoring response. What are other people reporting? How does that feed into your situation? Because not everybody gets a turn with the talking stick. Okay, so here's a breakdown of who typically should be included at that table. Management, technical, you should definitely have legal and HR in there, and then there will be other. Can everybody see what I've written there, or do you want me to go through it? Okay. Have I left anybody out? Who else would you add to that mix? PR? That could be under marketing, but that's a very, very good point. Yeah. Good. Right. Yeah. So that means, again, looking at what's specific to your organization and making sure you have represented all of the people. All right. So now we're going to do a bit of role play, and I've got enough people here. I'm going to ask you to come up to the front, and we will do a powwow of people in the hot seat. You're really good sports. But the value of this is based on experiences seeing people do role plays, tabletop exercises, and their discovery of what it's actually like and how their expectations were proved or disproved. So I would like a volunteer for management. Anybody want to be management? CISO? Okay, please. Come on up. All right. Have a seat. You can have a seat. Absolutely. I'll give you a seat. I would. All right. Well, would anybody like to be IT, or does Julian get to be IT? All right. You are IT. Who will be a representative for security at our table? All right, come on up. I would also like a representative for HR. Yeah? Come on up. And legal. Who will be our legal eagle? All right. Is there anybody else that we shall invite to this table? Anybody else want to have a seat? Anybody I should include at this table? Nobody else? Okay. We do need a spokesperson, actually. Anybody? You want to come up? You want to be our spokesperson? All right. Well, the part I didn't tell you was one of you isn't going to make it. And it actually is the spokesperson, so. Because it was a tornado, and bad things happened. Yeah, so they didn't make it into the office. I told you, it was a bad, bad day. Okay. All right. So now let's prepare our game plan. Remember, you are not yourself today. Your coworkers are not themselves. It's stressful. Play nice. All right, so my panel of distinguished participants. We've got a tornado. We've lost power. We don't have our communications person. Do we have an idea of who's on our team? Are we well represented? We've got IT, we've got security, we have legal, we have HR. Do we have, did you guys factor in, do we have backups? Did somebody put in place a backup for a spokesperson? You could have. What if we did have backups for the whole team? That would be great, but then that would defeat the purpose of this talk. And this is the government. We didn't have backups. I'm so sorry. One of you is going to have to take on the role of talking to the media. Yes, that would be it. They would be the ones who control it. So legal would advise management, and management would probably be the one manager, one designated manager. I've seen cases where a number of managers thought they might take turns with a talking stick. That did not go well. Okay. Let's talk about some key systems that need to be operational. What would you guess now that you know that we'll take a flying leap at it. You're in government. What key systems would you want to have up and running first? Well, and you know what? That is frighteningly accurate, because there is nothing worse than an angry mob. And when people find out they are not going to get paid, they're not coming to work, and you are in worse trouble. So yeah, if you've got payroll in place, just like making sure that you don't have any loose cannons, you are much better prepared for your disaster. Okay. I was thinking, well, yeah, we could be like Washington, D.C., and it's really, really bad. Federal government. We could make it state level government too. It could be bad enough at state level government. Let's make it state level. So we are at the state level, and yeah, we've been hammered. We're going to definitely need to reach out for federal assistance. It's just that we have no power. We are stuck in our facility, and we have no way to really reach out just yet, unless we've made those plans and provisions. So this, Reese, is a good question and something that needs to have been addressed. At what point in an incident will you invoke your disaster recovery plan? You But no, it would be absolutely, the plan would define at what point. Yes. So if your plan's done well, it will say after this point of time, you will now invoke this, you will start, there will be a chain of a calling chain, a communications chain. And ideally on that plan there will be backups if you are not able to reach the people that you need to reach first and then extend from there. As well, you'll have milestones to govern at what point in the plan you need to enact something, contact somebody else, or just making sure, and this is again very important, that you are updating stakeholders or key people of what's going on. You have to keep them in the loop because otherwise people jump to conclusions, people get angry, people may choose to take matters in their own hands in a way that you didn't anticipate and make things worse. Kind of like throwing kerosene on the fire. All right. You need to have a backup location, and then you need to have a backup to your backup location. It's very possible that the tornadoes were so devastating, and we know Tornado Alley can be really, really bad, and there was a picture of a massive F5 that just blew through recently, that our facility actually got throttled. So instead of our hot site that we were expecting, because we are the government and we did have some money, we're now at what is kind of a really, it's not even a warm site, it's more of a lukewarm site. We are in a data center. We do have generators working. We have some degree of power in place. But the question is just how much planning and testing have we done leading up to this to make sure that our data integrity and replication is in place, that the people we needed to bring on we've even been able to contact, because if cell power is out and phone lines are down, how do we reach people? Maybe this is it. Maybe all that we're able to make it to the data center today were you 5. There are some pretty scary realities. And that raises another question. This was a natural disaster and a tornado. Does your playbook address incidents that are specific to cyber? And does it differentiate between the types of natural disasters, power outages? Because it has to. It can't be a one-size-fits-all. You are going to get into so much trouble. It won't work that way. And that is why the experts recommend you need to practice on a regular basis. And you only get better from learning from your failures. All right, you guys have been fantastic so far. Let's do a little bit of a wrap-up here. So, all is not lost. The good news is, when the zombie apocalypse Armageddon happens, you guys are going to be so much better prepared than you were just an hour ago. You're really going to have an idea of what to do. So yes, we know we have to test things. Great. You're actually going to be prepared to go back and say why you need to test things. Because it isn't going to be the way you thought it was going to be. Remember to make it an all play. Everybody has a seat at this table. Your playbook is a valued member of your team. Keep it open, keep it updated, and use it. You will be as good as your playbook. Know your objective. And be prepared sometimes to refine or even restate that. But make sure everybody is clear on what the objective is. Because only you guys can answer that. I've made a couple of sheets about tabletop exercises that you can download from the slides, but these are the things that you want to incorporate when you're putting one together, and I highly recommend it. Also, I know that on Twitter, there's a Twitter ID that generates daily tabletop exercises that you can put yourself in and learn from. And finally, you look at how you can employ virtualization and cloud solutions for your backups, and check very carefully your SLAs with your service providers, your third parties. Look at who their third parties are. Look at what they've tested. What are the reports that are coming back? because that's where you'll find the holes. It's not with that provider, it's with the fact that they're subcontracting out to somebody else you may have no idea about. Okay? Replication, data replication, only as good as it works. If you haven't tested it, if you don't know how to do it, if it isn't what you're expecting, and also for your apps, what do you want to be able to bring up and restore? How usable is it when you need it? Okay, so what are you guys going to do differently? Any questions? Comments? I don't know, have you guys noticed anything? Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I call that the there but for the grace of God goes I. Exactly. It's so much easier to learn from somebody else's misfortune. Yeah, that's very, very powerful. And there have been some pretty big illustrations just this year alone for people to take back or for management. It would be a shame if those were wasted. Really, really good point. Mm-hmm. I do love being able to use a carrot over a stick when possible, but sometimes, and we find this a lot, and it seems to be quite effective with management, they understand bottom line and they understand fear more than they understand the positive. I think it doesn't hit home until it hits hard. Yeah. So that's what they understand. Any other questions or yeah. Okay. You are wonderful. Thank you. Because it's so true. They see that, they actually do read it, and if you can tie it to compliance, you have a way of getting them to address it. We want to try and improve on it, but at least it forces the issue and it ensures that something is happening. And then if you can have evangelists within the organization help foster that playbook and, really coach those teams, good things happen. Yeah. Compliance. I know I have to do a lot of compliance work. It's a necessary. Yeah. Yeah. No, but it's a good point. All right. I want to say thank you very, very much. It was a pleasure and a privilege to get to share this with you. Thank you for the very bad day at the office. Come up and get some chocolates.